And then I went to my leadership and I said, this is what's going on. We need help. This is what I think we should do. I need you to support us and advocate for us. And we sat down as a leadership team and we figured out, okay, well, do we walk away from this client or do we make demands and do we advocate for the well-being of our team? And we decided we're going to advocate for the well-being of our team.
How can we feel secure in our position and ask for what we think that is best for our teammates, for our clients?
Mm-hmm. I think first you need to build trust with not just yourself, but also with the people around you, right? Establishing a positive relationship with others. So when you do need to step out and have a courageous conversation, you know that someone has your back, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that's not naturally you to just jump off the cliff with no parachute, it's helpful to have that safety net. So I would say to anyone that is in a situation where there is a misalignment of your core values, of who you are, I would say, one, ask yourself, what is it that you want? Understand what your choices are and have the conversation with the person. Try to understand what they are, what their come from state is, what is driving them to this decision. Yeah, your culture is your norms and behaviors. How do you make decisions?
Mm-hmm.
What actions do you take? What methodologies do you follow? How are you bringing in people and nurturing and developing them, right? So again, it goes into, it's the doing.
How the owners of a company influence the company culture?
Well, I think the owners need to realize that they are under a microscope. Am I creating a space of psychological safety where people feel okay with sharing their opinion, even when it's opposite of what I may think as the leader, as the owner?
Welcome to the Improve Work podcast. I'm your host, Daniela Tancău, an HR consultant helping entrepreneurs and team leaders build motivated, high-performing teams. Here we talk about leadership, employee motivation, and other topics that enhance your ability to lead, whether you are an entrepreneur with a team, a business owner planning to build one, or a leader in a company. You'll gain practical advice and insights from me and my guests, experts in the field and entrepreneurs who share their leadership experiences. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe to stay updated on every episode. Let's dive into today's topic. Hi everyone, my guest today is Tonya Roberts, a transformative fractional CEO and HR consultant. She helps businesses across 30 countries scale their operations and build inclusive cultures. With 18 years of experience developing high-performing teams and generating seven-figure revenues, she has become a trustful advisor for small business owners. In this episode, we talk about authentic leadership, how to get to know your team members, how to adapt your leadership style to your team members' preferences and characteristics, what a company culture is, how it's formed, and the impact business owners have on the culture. Let's dive in. Hi, Latonia. Thank you for being here today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So today we'll talk about authentic leadership and how to build a culture centered on people. And my first question for you is how would you define authentic leadership? And how can a leader know if they are being authentic?
Sure. So I would define authentic leadership as leadership that is true to who you are, right? A lot of time we are influenced by other leaders that we've been around or different leadership styles that we've heard about that were effective. And the reason why they were effective because it was effective for them and it was true to who that person was, right? So for example, if you try to be a leader that is very authoritarian like or just, giving out orders and you're getting results, but that's not who you are. You're that leader that prefers collaboration, likes to build trust and gets to know your people. That other style isn't going to work for you. So I would say authentic leadership is leadership that is true to who you are. It allows you to build trust with people. It allows you to create a space where people are free to come to you and share ideas, and you can truly get the best out of the team members that you are leading, but also something that feels natural to who you are.
Mm-hmm. And what feel nature to a leader is the same thing with what feel nature for an employee.
No, it's very individual, right? And so when you think about your interactions with your employees or your different team members, you think about the ways that you communicate, right? We can all have the same goal, the same inroad, and but the way that we get there is going to be different, just like the way that we communicate is going to be different, right? If you're someone who likes all the details, but your team member doesn't like the details, you're not going to give them all the details when you're communicating because they're going to shut down, right? So you're going to speak to them in a way that sets them up to hear you, not just tailored for the way that you prefer to give communication or you prefer to receive communication. So everything is tailored for that individual, and it's the individual who is receiving the information, not necessarily the one that is giving the
Mm-hmm.
information.
So we have two factors here. The leader has to know himself or herself, and
Mm-hmm.
on the other hand, the leader has to know his or her team members.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So
how
it
how
starts with you for sure, right? Know you, know what you like, what you don't like, what works for you, and then understand the people that you're working with.
Mhm. And how can leader can be more aware of what uh, they are, who they are as
Hmm.
leaders, and
Hmm.
how they can know their team members' preferences and what they like, how they like to be led.
Yeah, so two ways I would say. One, we can do the personality assessments, right? Whether that's this, Myers-Briggs, or Enneagram, whatever your preference is, right? Because they're going to ask you questions about, if you were in this situation, how would you respond? How do you like to receive this? What would you do here, right? So that's one way. The other way is through self-reflection. So thinking about certain situations that you were in before and what was your process of making a decision? How did you respond? How did you feel in that situation? Right. So, what was the end result? So, I would do the self reflection and then use some of those personality assessments to understand a little bit more and give you some more insights into who you are. And then the same thing with your people, right? So, the personality assessments are great ways to do some teamwork activities, team building activities to get to know each other because it builds connection. It creates those aha moments, but then also observing them in certain situations. So, say you're working on a project and you're giving them a task. How did they respond? Did they ask any questions? Did they shut down? How did they perform? When you have your one-on-one conversations, what did that interaction look like? And then how do you observe them when they work with other people as well?
Mhm. And if a leader doesn't have this tool at his hand, he doesn't have a personality assessment tool. What other ways, in which other ways the leader can know the team members?
Conversation, just talking to people, right? And building that rapport and not just talking about just the work that you're doing, but getting to know the person as the individual. Remember, at the end of the day, we are all people. We all have things going on outside of work too. And if that person is receptive to giving you a little bit more information and insight into who they are, that is a great way to get to know the person. And asking hypothetical questions. If you were in this situation, what would you do? Or would you be open to a certain opportunity? Right.
Mhm.
And I call it being positively curious, right? It's not too invasive in that you're trying to get all in their business and use information against them, but it's really how do I get to know you as a person? And then we can shape your experience in the workplace around that, as well as make sure that it's in alignment with what the organization needs.
Mhm. So knowing their preferences, knowing how they react to different situations,
Mhm.
it can help a leader to adapt to the team member style.
Yes.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, so we have a start in this discussion. So we have to know our team members, and we have to know ourselves if we are in a leadership position.
Uh-huh.
Can you give an example in which you were an authentic leader, in which you manifest this authenticity in a
Mhm.
challenging situation?
Yeah, so I am someone who is really big on making sure that people have a positive experience in the workplace. And of course, also observing my team members. So I was on this project, it was several years ago. I was on a project with a new consultant, brand new in the consulting world. And I honestly believe that we lose a lot of great talent and a lot of great team members in that first couple of years because they have a negative experience with consulting, which can be a very fast-paced world and it's not meant for everyone. So I had this gentleman that had joined the team. It was his first project. And we had walked into a situation where it was a challenging situation. Let's just say that the clients were a little stressed in terms of what we were walking into, the demands that they had, and they were kind of putting that pressure on the team members. And it made for someone who is unseasoned in the consulting world, it can be very uncomfortable. You don't know how to respond. You haven't necessarily found your voice, and you don't know how to push back in a way that the clients can still respect you and you can still come off as an authority in the area. So I had noticed that this guy was a little uncomfortable in a conversation after a client. It had gotten a little tense. So I waited till everyone had left the office and it was just me and him. And I said to him, hey, this is what I observed. I just want to check in. How are you feeling? What was going on in your head? And his natural response was like, I really like working with you. And showing his loyalty, I'm like, that's great. And I appreciate that. But I noticed, and I shared what I noticed with him. I said, I want to know, do you still want to work on this project? You have options, right? And that's the first thing. You have options, and people don't realize that they do. So, do you want to work here? He said, yes. I said, okay. If we could change anything, what would it be? Right? I wanted to know, what did he need in order to be successful in that situation? So we wrapped up the conversation, and then I went to my leadership and I said, this is what's going on. We need help. This is what I think we should do. I need you to support us and advocate for us. And we sat down as a leadership team and we figured out, okay, well, do we walk away from this client, or do we make demands and do we advocate for the well-being of our team? And we decided we're going to advocate for the well-being of our team. And it was great because a lot of people would not do that. I've seen a lot of managers that would just sit back and try to figure it out and push through and let their team suffer. And that's not me. I don't like to see people suffer. So the next day I walked into the client and I said, okay, here's a situation. This can no longer happen. It's not appropriate. And if it doesn't change, my team is no longer coming into the office. And oh, by the way, I've spoken to my leadership and they're going to come back in 24 hours with the decision. And so that happened, and everything actually worked out well. And so what I learned from that was you can advocate for your team, you can stand up for what's right. And we ended up changing the workplace environment immediately. And we supported that client for several years. And that young man ended up staying on the team for, I think, about a year and a half and continued in consulting for a while. So I thought it was a positive experience all around.
Yes, I think that he felt supported, and
Yeah.
he had someone to watch his back. So
Yeah.
uh,
And
I
I felt supported. I actually had the principal on that project come to me and she said, I'm so proud of you for even having that conversation. And I had just started with this company myself. So I had been there for 2 weeks. And I had to already step in and say, we're not doing this. So this was me showing up as who I am as a leader and as a person, and just setting the tone for, if you're going to continue to work with me, this is what I expect from you. I expect you to
Mhm.
advocate for the team. I expect you to stand up for what is right.
So it took courage for you to have that conversation with your colleague and also with the client.
Yes.
So I think that authentic leadership asks for us courage.
Hmm.
So not to be afraid. How can we feel secure in our position and ask for what we think that is best for our teammates, for our clients?
Hmm. I think first you need to build trust with not just yourself, but also with the people around you, right? Establishing a positive relationship with others. So when you do need to step out and have a courageous conversation, you know that someone has your back, right?
Mhm.
If that's not naturally you to just jump off the cliff with no parachute, it's helpful to have that safety net. I think the other thing is you build courage in the doing. So by taking action, you build up that courage muscle to know, well, I did this before and nothing bad happened, or it wasn't as bad as I thought. So let me take it a step further. So the courage is built in the doing.
Mhm. And what would you do if, in that situation, your leadership wouldn't had support you? If they had a different reaction, and maybe they would have been, how can I say this? Didn't know how to react to your requests. So sometimes the people who lead a team are not the owner of the company, and maybe there are conflictual situation in which the values and the principles of a leader are different from those of the top management of a
Mhm.
company. And how can we balance this? How can we be careful how we express our authenticity? Or are there some limits to
Mhm.
expressing our true self, let's say?
Mhm. Sure. So one, I'm going to go back to we always have a choice. You
Mm-hmm.
do I stay or do I go? Right. And you explore your choices or your options through conversation and self-reflection. So had my leadership not, or had my leadership decided, no, I just want you all to just put your head down and do your work. I have a choice. Do
Yes.
I stay on this project? Or is this the company that is right for me? And I also knew that at that time I had been working in consulting for well over 10 years. I could find a job easily,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I had that confidence to be able to do that. So I would say to anyone that is in a situation where there is a misalignment of your core values, of who you are, I would say one, ask yourself, what is it that you want? Understand what your choices are and have the conversation with the person. Try to understand what they are, what their come from state is, what is driving them to this decision. Maybe there's something that you don't know, and that would help you make a better informed decision. The other thing that I would say is try to find the commonality between the two of you. Maybe what I find is a lot of times you actually have more in common than you think, and your motivations may be different, but you have the same end game, right? So see if there is something in common with them. And if there isn't, again, you have a choice. Do you stay or do you go? And that's a very personal decision for various reasons. I believe earlier in my career, I probably would have said, I'm just going to put my head down and I'm just going to continue to do the work. Right. But as a more seasoned person, I understand where my power lies, and my power lies with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I
And
trust myself.
how did you come to this realization that you have power and that you can choose? As you said, many employees may don't take this option seriously and don't make these hard choices for them if they find out that they are not aligned with the company values.
Yeah. I mean, when you're in a situation, it can be scary, right? And so then you have to think about, okay, what is my mindset right now? Where have I been in situations where I've had to make hard decisions and things were okay in the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have this little mug that says, you can do hard things well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think about all of the adversity that I overcame. I was a single mom for most of my kids' lives. I entered into consulting when they were very young, and I decided, let's add more to that pot and let's go to grad school as well, right? So I had done the hard things. So anything that someone else threw at me, I always knew that I'm going to figure it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love this quote, find a way or make a way. And that has been my ethos in I'm going to find a way or I'm going to make a way. And I could lean on that in any situation. And so I would tell someone, remind yourself of who you are and remind yourself of those situations where you have overcome adversity and know that you can figure things out. You just
Mm-hmm.
have to be open to it. And that final solution may not come in the package or in the way that you think it may come, but just be very open to the ways that you receive the help and the support that you need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you build on your past experiences and your past struggles, I
Yes.
think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, struggles and successes. And more importantly, the successes, right? It's like, yeah, I went through this before, but this
Mm-hmm.
is what I found and this was the impact and this is why I'm here now and able to do the things that I'm able to do.
And what are and here are the things that I can lose if I don't step in my authenticity and in my true self.
Absolutely. And there's so much that can be lost when you don't follow who you are, right? And I know we're not talking about this, but burnout is real. And it is something that I had to experience and overcome throughout my career. And it showed up in health challenges and my body just shutting down, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to get to that point of, oh my gosh, if I don't make a change, then this could get even worse, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I don't wish that on everyone, but it was a huge lesson learned for me experiencing burnout and then coming back from them and being very intentional about the decisions that I make and the actions that I take and advocating for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Coming back to the company culture and how we can balance our authenticity with the company's culture, I want to ask you first to understand better, our audience to understand better, how a company forms its culture, how
Mhm.
a company reach a certain identity.
Sure. Yeah, your culture is your norms and behaviors. How do you make decisions?
Mhm,
What actions do you take? What methodologies do you follow? How are you bringing in people and nurturing and developing them, right? So again, it goes into it's the doing. It's how are you showing up as a company, right? And how are your people being impacted? How do they feel about working at the organization?
mhm. At the beginning, a company doesn't have so many rules, but after a while, uh, when the members go through certain experiences, they realize that they have to introduce some rules.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that these are some steps through which they go to form these cultures to their
Yeah.
experiences. But they have some choices. They have some options between the rules that they choose and the ways they choose to act and behave in certain situation. How top management, how the owners of a company influence the company culture.
Well, I think the owners need to realize that they are under a microscope. As you start to build your company, you have to learn to make decisions fast. And you also have to trust that you have built a team around you that you can trust and you can delegate to. And
Mm-hmm.
that is a challenge that a lot of the growing companies that I work with that are expanding so fast and they realize we're at the point where we can't be so hands-on in everything and they really struggle with that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
their members see it because it looks like bottlenecks in the organization. It looks like we can't move unless this owner or whomever says go, and so they start to see a decline in productivity and a decline in morale, and maybe even people leaving because they're not happy. And so I would say to those owners that are in that in the messy middle of, oh my gosh, our business is growing and it's thriving and it's all the things that we want it to be, but I have to learn to take a step back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that think about not necessarily you in the situation, but think about your people and how they are being impacted by the decisions that you make, whether it's I need to make a hard decision to let go of someone who's been with me from the beginning because they are no longer a good fit for the organization. How you make that decision is something that people will notice, right? People notice when there's a good person or a person that is no longer a good fit in the organization and they're talking about it, right? And they're impacted by it and they're looking to take on that leadership role and make the hard decision. So thinking about just how you move, how you operate, how you onboard new clients, how you onboard new team members, how do you let go of people, how you are following your processes and making sure that things are running smoothly. All those things have to be taken into consideration, and it requires a level of trust and a level of you being able to say, you know what, I don't need to be as hands-on, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. And
Mm-hmm.
these are the characteristic of a culture that is centered on people,
Mm-hmm.
giving them the power to get involved in decisions and um, taking their opinions, their ideas into consideration. This is a characteristic of a culture that is centered on people.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, I mean, you want a culture that is centered on people is really thinking about how would the person respond in this situation? Am I creating a space of psychological safety where people feel okay with sharing their opinion, even when it's opposite of what I may think as the leader, as the owner, right? I want
Mm-hmm.
you to come to me with innovative solutions and problem solving. And if I don't create a space for you to do that and know that there isn't going to be any retaliation for it, I'm not going to get the best out of my team members, right? And
Mm-hmm.
within limits, right? You can't just you can't be negative and when you're talking. However, creating that space of psychological safety that is free of retaliation um, is a definitely a great start for showing up authentically and creating that space of culture where people can be who they are.
Mhm. And to understand better what a safe work environment is, can you tell us more about how an insecure work environment is created? What are the factors that create these fears of employees of not being able, or maybe they take some risk if they are open and communicate honestly what they think about certain things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen this several times working with some of my clients, and a lot of the frustration came from leaders, one, asking for feedback or information and not acting on it, right? So, say
Mm-hmm.
you send out a survey and you request information and you get it, and that's great, but then you do nothing with it. Or you have a town hall meeting and you ask for information and the leaders shut down or they get defensive. That can create a safe environment because then people feel like, well, why am I giving you this information and you're not going to do anything?
Right.
The other thing is just simply not listening to what their people need or not creating opportunities for them to be successful and having unrealistic expectations. One of the worst things is having an expectation on somebody that was never communicated. It's stuck in the person's head. And so you're holding them to these standards, and the person can never meet them because they had no idea that the standards were even set.
Mm-hmm. If they don't know what are the requests, how can they comply with those requests?
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, so these are some things that can help leaders to navigate through creating cultures that are more centered on people.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us some other advice? How can they create this culture?
Sure. So seek feedback, create a place of open communication, right? We talked about psychological safety earlier, but also understand that not everyone is going to want to, have a conversation in front of a group of people. So how can you create these opportunities for them to connect with you on a one-on-one basis, whether that's having an open door policy because you're in person, and you can create that in
Mm-hmm.
a virtual environment as well, right? So I tell people all the time, dedicate time every week or every other week where you just open up Zoom or Google Meets or whatever you communicate
Mm-hmm.
on, and I'm available during this hour. You have a question, pop on the link. It's the same link every time, and ask your question. I'm here for you. Also creating space where you can have natural conversations outside of just office meeting, asking people, what's going on in their life. I have a kid that is getting ready to graduate high school. There's a lot going on in the first half of the year, right? And so leaders that take an interest in their team members create loyalty. And a lot of times when you're not able to compensate one compensate somebody monetarily, they can get those emotional deposits into, just saying, hey, this person takes an interest in who I am. They ask about me as a person. They're concerned about my family. They are creating opportunities for me to continue to learn and grow, whether that's shadowing on another project or mentorship or coaching or sending me to a class. There's so many different ways where you can create this culture where people feel safe to connect with you, build trust with you, and still learn and grow in an environment where they want to feel like they're included, they feel like they belong, and they want to
Mm-hmm.
actually work there.
Mm-hmm. So knowing things about their personal lives helps to create better connections and to for them to trust more in the leader.
Yeah, it does, and it doesn't have to get too personal, right? I mean, the person
Mm-hmm.
again has choice of how much they're willing to share, but
Mm-hmm.
just getting to the person,
And are
if they do their personal life, it's, what else do you want to work on at work? What
mm-hmm.
projects are you interested in? What what are some of those hidden skills that we're not tapping into that you could bring to the
Mm-hmm.
table?
Mm-hmm.
You can different routes. You can go the personal or you can keep it work centered, but it's getting to know the person.
Mm-hmm. And what they want professionally, because this is important to facilitate those things for them. And
Yes.
and there are some
Mhm.
people who are not open to communicate things about their personal lives. Other people are very happy if you ask them, but not all of them. So you have to adapt to different types of personalities and different people, I think. Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much, Latonia, for sharing with us your insights. Do you want to add something about this topic? Maybe I didn't ask all the critical question or things that you think that are critical in creating a culture that is centered on people and being authentic.
Sure. I mean, not that I want to add, but I just kind of want to summarize,
Mm-hmm.
what we've been talking about in this conversation. Because if you're going to create a culture that is centered around people, remember that it includes yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
getting to know who you are as a person, what motivates you, how do you want to show up? If you think about the legacy that you leave behind, it really is, what are people saying about you? Do you want to show up as a butthole, or do you want people saying, you know what, they're an amazing person and I wish all of my leaders were like that person. I could come to
Mm-hmm.
them and I could talk to them. They listened, they heard me, and they created opportunities for me to grow, whether that's within the company or
Mm-hmm.
externally. Think about, and then really think about the impact of your decisions at different
Mm-hmm.
levels, right? Because what you as a leader are going to be concerned about may be very different than what your team members are concerned about, right? So you can
Mm-hmm.
make a decision that it's great for leadership team and it's great for big picture organization, but the people that are actually doing the work every day that have to show up, are they also benefiting from this too? And if they're
Mm-hmm.
not, how can we come to mutually beneficial?
Mm-hmm. So we have to create these win-win situations.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And not everything is going to be a win-win situation. Let's be honest. We can't always
Yes.
have that. But if you are in a very tough situation where it can't be a win-win for all, then I think that transparency and honesty is something that goes a long way. And people understand if you came to me and said, Latanya, we have to lay some people off in the next quarter because we're just not meeting the profits or the landscape is changing. I would much rather you tell me that 3 months earlier than waiting until the last week or on a Friday and saying, we have to make some cuts and then Monday you're cutting off. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because you've explained what's going on, you've given me the context, and you've prepared me to be able to make that change. So now I know I need to cut back on my spending. I need to start looking for a different job. I need to do whatever it is for my family or my personal situation to prepare me for this change that can't be fixed, but
Mm-hmm.
I can prepare myself. So there's many ways to deliver a hard conversation and make those unpopular decisions. But again, thinking about what is the impact on your people and not wait until the last minute.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because being authentic and um, trying to create win-win situations doesn't mean that you always succeed because you sometimes you have to communicate bad news or you have to give a bad feedback to an employee, and it's not always easy or pleasant to do these things.
Exactly.
Mhm. Thank you very much, Latonia. I think that this is very important. I think that it's important for all people to feel safe in their work environment because what's the point to go to a place and behave in a way that it doesn't feel authentic to you? Sometimes we wear this mask at work and behave differently than how we would behave in other places or at home. And I think that this is a shame, and I think that it's not a healthy environment for people to work in.
Yes, agreed.
For those who want to connect with you and gain more support from you, how can they do this? Do you have
Sure.
some preferred ways?
Yes, so you can go to my website. It's harmonyconsultinggroup.org. You also can scan the QR code here on the screen and it'll take you there, or you can book a consult. And if you want to connect with me on Facebook or Instagram, I'm at Coach Latanya Roberts on there, or
Mm-hmm.
you can on LinkedIn at
Mm-hmm.
LA-TO-NYA-Rob on LinkedIn.
I will put the links in the show notes. I
All
was
right.
I was planning to ask you about the scanner that you have there.
Uh-huh.
What are they for? Can you
So
say
the
again?
top one is to book a consult, a free consult with me if you want to just talk about your situation and see if we're a good fit to work together. And the bottom one will take you directly to my website.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Latonia.
Thank you. It's appreciative. I appreciate you having me on here.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you found value in this podcast, one way to support us is by subscribing. I appreciate your listening and look forward to bringing you more valuable episodes. See you next time.